You've probably heard about massive tanks, huge battleships, even supersonic jets. But what if I told you there were locomotives built for war so huge, so powerful, you'd never believe they existed? That's right, these weren't your ordinary freight trains. These were military machines on rails. And today, I'll take you through some of the biggest military locomotives ever built that you probably never knew existed. Stick around because the next one is even stranger. Let's start with a story. Imagine you're in Europe during a massive war. Supplies are pouring in, troops are moving, and the railways are vital lifelines. But the terrain is tough, the loads are enormous, and the enemy might bomb the tracks at any moment. What you need is a locomotive that can haul heavy loads, travel long distances, operate in rough conditions, and above all, deliver when it counts. Enter one of our giants. Chapter 1. The LMS Stanier Class 8F. This locomotive, originally built for civilian freight, found itself pressed into military service. One example, number 8233, built in 1940, was requisitioned by the War Department and sent overseas with the British Army rail operations. Why is this interesting? Because it shows how locomotives weren't just industrial machines. They became part of the logistics backbone of war. The Stanier 8F was robust, simple, and reliable. Its military service gives it a special place in this list. After the war, it continued working, even being repatriated back to the UK and preserved, which is pretty unusual for a war-era locomotive. Now Chapter 2. The German wartime austerity locomotives, the DRB Class 52 Kriegslokomotive. These were built in huge numbers during WW under the Nazi regime's efforts to sustain rail transport, even under bombing, material shortages, and harsh conditions. The key idea: they simplified designs, used fewer scarce materials, made them easy to maintain and quick to produce. These are military locomotives in the truest sense. They were designed for war logistics. They hauled troops, supplies, munitions across front lines and occupied territories. But here's the surprise. Despite their simplicity, they were formidable machines in their own right. They might not match the flash of a super-articulated steam behemoth, but their scale of production and impact during wartime make them big in a different way. Maybe the biggest you never knew existed. Okay, but now we shift gear into the giant of giants territory. Chapter 3, the Union Pacific Big Boy. Now you might ask, wait, Big Boy? That's American and for freight, not war. True, but hear me out because its story makes it worthy of this countdown. Built in the early 1940s for the Union Pacific Railroad to haul heavy freight over the mountain grades. It was deployed during the war era when supply chains were massive and railroads were strategic. The Big Boy was a beast. 488 four-wheel arrangement, about 132 feet long, weighing over 1.2 million pounds when you include tender and engine. It could haul trains of thousands of tons up steep grades that would have required multiple smaller engines. In other words, it was pushed to the limit, often in contexts tied to wartime logistics, and it holds records. Why does it matter? Because when war demands huge freight movements, the largest locomotives become icons of industrial power. And its legacy? One example, number 4014, was restored and is operational today, proving the machine's durability and legend. And now, I promised, you never knew existed. Here's Chapter 4, and it'll blow your mind. The narrower gauge. Field military locomotives built for frontline service. The Heeresfeldbahn locomotive HF-160D, built for the German Heeresfeldbahn, Army Field Railways, around 1944 to 45. These were not the giant mountain haulers, but think of them as rugged, badass military rail trucks built to run into war zones. On narrow gauge, under fire in captured or improvised territory, they show a different kind of big. Not always physical size, but big in importance and role and toughness. After the war, many were repurposed into civilian service in Austria and elsewhere, showing how war machines sometimes became peace machines. So, what do we have so far? 4 locomotives classes. Stanier 8F, robust British freight engine pressed into war logistics. DRB Class 52. Kriegslokomotive, German mass-produced war locomotive. Union Pacific Big Boy, massive American steam giant built in wartime freight context. Heeresfeldbahn HF-160D, specialized field military locomotives for frontline rail usage. And we've teased that the next ones will be even stranger, and there are more weird ones to come. Armored trains, portable military rail networks, etc. In the next part, I'll take you into the weirdest. Locomotives built for warfare in unusual roles. Think armored trains, mobile railway guns, locomotives hauling artillery, and we'll dig into their crazy specs, stories, and what they became afterwards. Before I wrap up this first chunk, if you're enjoying this walk into the hidden world of military locomotives, drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next part, where things get even wilder. Stick around because the next one is even stranger. Narrative perspective used. I speak directly to you, the viewer. You won't believe, using second-person perspective to engage you. Storytelling devices used. I open with a hook that challenges assumptions. You've heard about tanks, but I use curiosity gaps. The next one is even stranger. And transitions between chapters. I tell brief context stories for each locomotive, highlight surprising facts, and build to a teaser.